The sun had just dipped behind the mountains of Tohoku. Mika and Aya had spent the afternoon packing, chatting, and laughing on the train ride. Their friend, Yumi, had invited them to a local hot spring, a place known for its traditional wooden baths and serene views. Tonight was meant to be a break from investigations, a chance to relax.
I can't remember the last time I actually did nothing. This is going to be nice.
Yeah, no haunted schools, no weird shadows, just hot water and peace.
Don't get too relaxed, you two. Tohoku evenings can get chilly, and the steam will make you feel like ghosts floating around.
By the time they arrived at the small inn near the springs, lanterns glowed along the wooden pathways. The air smelled faintly of pine and heated stones. The warm light reflected off puddles from a recent rain, and steam rose in delicate curtains from the hot spring pools.
Look at the architecture. It's so old but somehow cozy.
Yeah, the beams are weathered. The wood smells earthy. I could spend hours just staring at it.
And you better. You'll regret missing the full moon's reflection in the water.
They changed into their yukata and made their way to the open bath area. The pools were mostly empty, just a few other guests scattered across the steaming waters. Laughter and conversation floated lightly through the air, but the far corner of the bath seemed quieter, darker, almost untouched.
Mika, did you notice that corner over there? It looks different.
Yeah, it's just darker. Maybe the light doesn't reach fully. Nothing to worry about.
Actually, I heard something odd about this place earlier. Someone said that sometimes, late at night, there's been sightings of a man acting strangely near the pools.
A man like a ghost?
No, not a ghost. More like a person behaving strangely. Could be nothing, but I thought you two should know.
Well, even in hot water, we can't fully relax now, can we?
Mika and Aya exchanged a glance, curiosity sparking alongside unease. They had come for relaxation, yet the thought of someone lurking nearby, or perhaps something else, made their hearts beat a little faster. They stayed in the water, scanning the edges of the pool, whispering quietly. Steam rose from the warm water, curling lazily into the chilly mountain air. Mika and Aya leaned back, letting their muscles relax, while Yumi laughed softly from the edge of the pool, telling stories of childhood trips to the same onsen.
You know, when I was little, we'd play hide and seek here at night. Thought no one could ever see us.
Sounds fun. Definitely beats any creepy online story.
Yeah, though I'd rather not bump into someone sneaky in these mountains.
For a few moments, they enjoyed the normalcy. The warm water, the scent of pine, the distant rustle of leaves outside. Their laughter echoed softly off the wooden walls, and nothing seemed out of place.
By the way, someone mentioned seeing a strange man around here last week. Licking water spots? People were spooked. Thought it was a joke, but maybe be careful.
Licking water spots? Sounds gross, but maybe it's just some prankster.
Yeah, but it could also be someone trying something weird.
The girls exchanged uneasy glances. For the first time, the relaxed atmosphere felt fragile, as if the warm air carried an undercurrent of unease. Minutes passed. Near the edge of the pool, Mika noticed something unusual. Small, irregular wet patches slowly shifting across the stone floor.
Mika, look! The water, it's moving.
Someone must be there? A prankster? Maybe it's him.
Their eyes scanned the bathhouse, but the area appeared empty. Steam blurred their vision, and shadows stretched oddly across the floor. Each subtle movement of the wet patches seemed intentional, deliberate, too precise for water alone.
Don't rush. Let's watch a bit more. Maybe it's just someone hiding.
Feels like they're watching us. Or waiting.
They stayed still, careful not to call attention. Every small shift in the wet patches made their hearts beat faster. They whispered theories. Prankster, drunk hiker, someone lost. But nothing emerged from the steam or shadows.
All right, let's remember what we saw and check it later. If there's really someone, we can figure out how to handle it safely.
Yeah, just stay calm.
The patches moved slowly, almost taunting, but no figure appeared. The girls left the bathhouse with uneasy curiosity, knowing something unusual had occurred, but still assuming, for now, that it was human. Mika and Aya Yumi returned to the onsen. Sunlight filtered through the mountain trees, steam rising gently from the pools. Everything looked ordinary again, peaceful, even welcoming. Guests chatted softly nearby, towels were folded, water rippled lazily against stone.
Looks normal today.
Yeah, maybe we really overthought it.
See? I told you. It's probably nothing.
For a moment, Mika wondered if the night before had just been nerves. But as they settled near the edge of the bath area, Mika noticed something again. A thin, damp mark along the tiles. Not footprints. Not splashed water. Just a narrow trail, dragged slowly across the floor. The three of them watched in silence. Steam drifted past, briefly hiding the tiles, then revealing them again. The wet mark was longer now.
Was that there before?
No.
The mark moved, slowly, almost carefully. Not like someone walking. Not like water spreading.
Maybe someone's messing around?
But who would do that in public?
Then they saw it. A small shape, crouched low near the floor. Hunched. Awkward. Its movement was deliberate. Slow, unnatural. It leaned forward, tracing the wet surface.
Is that the guy people were talking about?
I don't think a human moves like that.
The figure paused. Its head tilted, just slightly. Then, without a sound, it slipped behind a wooden support beam and disappeared into the steam. They stayed frozen for a few seconds, hearts racing.
We didn't bring any equipment. This is supposed to be a vacation.
Let's not jump to conclusions. Maybe staff knows something.
Aya nodded and flagged down a nearby staff member. The uniformed attendant arrived calmly, scanning the area where they pointed. Only wet tiles remained.
I don't see anything unusual. Could be leftover moisture or a cleaning issue.
So there's no reports of someone sneaking around?
Not that I'm aware of. If you notice anything again, please let us know.
The staff member bowed politely and walked away. The bath returned to its gentle rhythm. But none of them relaxed. They finished their trip as planned. Meals, souvenirs, quiet walks through the mountain town. Laughter returned, but something lingered beneath it. That night, as they packed their bags, Mika stared at her phone.
It's weird. We came here to relax.
And instead, we keep thinking about the floor.
Guess some places don't like being ignored.
They shared a small laugh, but it faded quickly. Outside, the mountains of Tohoku stood silent in the dark, and somewhere, water continued to drip. Slowly, patiently. Back home, the trip did not feel complete. It had been meant as a vacation, not an investigation. And yet the images they carried back were heavier than expected. There was no footage, no photographs, and no clear evidence. Only the memory of movement on wet tiles, and the uncomfortable certainty that what they saw had not been human. Mika opened her laptop anyway, spreading her notes across the table. Aya sat beside her, towel-dried hair still smelling faintly of sulfur from the onsen. Both of them replaying the same scene in silence.
Even if we didn't record anything, we should still write this down properly. The details matter.
The way it moved, it didn't behave like a person trying to hide.
They began listing what they remembered, carefully and methodically. The damp streaks on the floor, the low crouched posture, the way the figure followed the wet marks instead of watching people, and how it vanished the moment staff arrived, leaving nothing behind except a sense of unease. Rather than searching through rumors or modern horror films, Mika turned to older sources, folklore databases, academic papers, and collections of regional yokai records. The atmosphere in the room shifted as illustrations appeared on the screen, drawn in faded ink, depicting hunched figures crouched close to the ground.
Stop there. That one, doesn't it look similar?
Mika scrolled back and began reading aloud.
Akaname, a yokai said to appear in dirty bathhouses, abandoned bathrooms, and neglected places where moisture and grime collect.
But it doesn't say it attacks people.
Aya hesitated. They continued reading, and with each paragraph, the tension they had carried from the onsen began to change shape. The descriptions were clear and consistent. Akaname was not a predator. It did not hunt, and it did not kill. It appeared quietly, avoided attention, and vanished when noticed. Mika frowned slightly.
The violent versions, those, came much later. Movies changed it.
So what we saw wasn't something aggressive.
They returned to their notes, reading through the descriptions again, this time with different eyes. The figure had never approached them. It had never reacted to their presence. Instead, it remained close to the floor, moving slowly along the damp areas, as if following something only it could perceive.
It didn't feel like we were being watched.
It felt like we were just there.
The realization was unsettling in a different way. If the yokai had not been reacting to them, then its appearance had not been caused by their presence at all. that it appeared because something about that place had drawn it there long before they arrived. According to older records, Akaname was often described not as a threat, but as a sign, a manifestation that appeared where something had been left unclean for too long, whether physically or symbolically. It was not there to punish, but to reveal neglect, an uncomfortable reminder rather than a danger.
So maybe it wasn't the problem.
Mika stared at the screen, her voice steady but quieter.
Maybe it was pointing at one.
Neither of them needed to say more. The implication was clear. Sometimes, the thing that frightens people most is not the monster itself, but what its presence suggests. That night, Mika saved their notes, not as evidence, and not as a conclusion, but as a record of uncertainty. Some stories do not end with answers, and some encounters are not meant to be confronted or captured. In folklore, not every yokai exists to harm, and not every fear deserves to be chased away. Sometimes, the most unsettling realization is this: the thing we thought was watching us may never have been the danger at all.
This was supposed to be a break, not an episode.
Yeah, and we didn't even bring proper equipment.
They reviewed their notes one last time. No footage to upload. No dramatic proof to show. Just a story that refused to become a spectacle. And for once, they decided that was enough.
Maybe not everything needs to be chased.
Or filmed.
Akaname does not announce itself. It does not seek attention, and when watched too closely, it disappears. Perhaps that is why it has survived so long in stories. What would you do if you noticed something strange in a place meant for rest and comfort? Would you investigate further or let it fade into memory? Subscribe to Whispers Beyond Archives, sometimes with cameras, sometimes with nothing but questions. Some mysteries do not ask to be solved. They only ask to be remembered.